The massive flower-shaped ship drifted through space, its once bright petals now dark and scarred. Inside the bioorganic vessel, High Botanist Veltha stared at the holographic display showing the destruction of Kythera Prime. The third world of their peaceful collective had fallen to the Ravagers in just 2 days. Veltha's 6 arms trembled as she watched the final transmission from the planet. The mechanical swarm had stripped away the vast garden cities, consuming everything organic and leaving behind only twisted metal and dead rock. 3 billion Kythera had lived there just a week ago. Now there was nothing but silence. High Botanist, came a soft voice behind her. Junior Botanist Kelmar approached, his normally bright green skin pale with fear. The Council is asking for your decision on the evacuation of Verdana Colony. Veltha closed her large, dark eyes. Verdana was their most beautiful world. Covered in singing forests and crystal lakes, it held the genetic library of 10,000 plant species from across their territory. But the Ravagers would reach it in 3 days. Begin immediate evacuation, she said quietly. All biological archives, all seedlings, all cultural memory banks. Leave nothing living behind. Kelmar nodded and hurried away. Veltha turned back to the display where new reports were coming in. The Ravager swarm had grown larger since consuming Kythera Prime. The mechanical creatures learned from each world they destroyed, becoming more efficient killers. The Kythera had lived in peace for over 1,000 years. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, with beautiful gardens inside their hulls and weapons that could barely destroy an asteroid. They had never needed to fight anyone. Their neighbors, the Gentle Winds Federation and the Crystal Song Alliance, were equally peaceful. None of them had weapons that could stop the Ravagers. A communication officer approached Veltha's platform. Her name was Silnara, and she had been monitoring all frequencies for any sign of help from the other civilizations they knew existed beyond their local space. High Botanist, Silnara said, her voice shaking. The other federations are not responding to our requests for military aid. The Gentle Winds say they are evacuating their border worlds. The Crystal Song Alliance has gone completely silent. Veltha felt a cold weight settle in her chest. The Kythera Collective had 7 worlds. 3 were already gone. Verdana would be evacuated and abandoned. That left only 3 worlds, including their capital world of Anethvar. Even if they abandoned 2 more worlds and concentrated all their people on Anethvar, they only had perhaps 50 ships that could fight, and those were just converted trade vessels. The Ravagers had over 10,000 ships. High Botanist, another voice called. This was Captain Morthak of the Defense Fleet, an old soldier who had spent his life protecting cargo ships from space pirates. Our scouts report the main Ravager force will reach Anethvar in 18 days. We estimate they have enough ships to completely surround our world. Veltha looked around the bridge of her ship. Dozens of Kythera worked at organic control stations, their faces showing the quiet despair of a people facing extinction. They had built a beautiful civilization based on growth, learning, and harmony with nature. Now that civilization was about to be consumed by machines that turned living worlds into dead factories. There is one option, Silnara said carefully. The Forbidden Protocols. Every Kythera on the bridge turned to look at her. The Forbidden Protocols were laws passed after their first contact with other species. 500 years ago, the Kythera had met a race of aggressive traders who had tried to steal their biotechnology. Since then, the collective had maintained strict isolation, never broadcasting their location or asking for help from unknown civilizations. If we break the isolation protocols, Captain Morthak said slowly, we don't know what will respond. There might be civilizations out there worse than the Ravagers. Veltha walked to the center of the bridge and activated the main communication array. The ship's bioneural network hummed around her, waiting for commands. She thought about the children in the nursery ships, about the ancient seed vaults, about the million-year-old trees on Anethvar that sang in the wind. Silnara, she said finally. Prepare a general distress broadcast on all known frequencies. High Botanist, Kelmar protested. The Council has not voted on this decision. The Council is busy evacuating Verdana, Veltha replied. In 18 days there might not be a Council left to vote on anything. Silnara's hands moved quickly over her station. Broadcasting array is ready. What should the message contain? Veltha thought for a moment. What could they say to unknown aliens that might convince them to help? The Kythera had little to offer except their biotechnology. And any civilization advanced enough to travel between stars probably had their own science. "Send our coordinates," she said. "Tell them we are a peaceful civilization under attack by a mechanical swarm. Tell them how many of our people have already died. Tell them we are asking any honorable species for assistance in protecting civilian populations." "Should we mention what we can offer in return?" Captain Morthak asked. "No," Veltha said. "If they come expecting payment, they are not the kind of allies we want. If they come because it is the right thing to do, then perhaps there is hope." Silnara finished preparing the message and looked up. "Ready to broadcast, High Botanist." Veltha took a deep breath. Once this message was sent, there would be no going back. Every hostile civilization within 100 light years would know where to find them. But every peaceful one would know too. "Send it," she said. The message burst out from their ship at the speed of light, spreading in all directions. It would take days or weeks to reach the nearest stars and longer to reach distant civilizations. Even if someone wanted to help, they might not arrive in time, but it was the only hope they had left. As the transmission completed, Veltha looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Ravager swarm. The mechanical ships moved in perfect formation, like a disease spreading through space. Soon they would reach Verdana colony, then the remaining agricultural worlds, finally Anethavar itself. "High Botanist," Silnara said quietly. "The message has been sent to over 300 star systems. If there are any listening posts out there, they will hear us." Veltha nodded and returned to watching the displays. Around her, the crew continued their work preparing for evacuation and defense. They moved with quiet efficiency, these people who had never known war but were now facing annihilation. Far away, in a small star system called Sol, the transmission was picked up by a monitoring station on the edge of inhabited space. The humans who received it had been listening to the galaxy for decades, waiting for this moment. They had always wondered what they would do when they finally heard from alien civilizations. Now they knew. Admiral Chen, we looked at the translated message on his screen and felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. Billions of innocent people were about to die, and Earth's brand new faster-than-light ships might be the only hope of stopping it. He reached for his communication device to contact the United Earth Council. Humanity was about to meet its neighbors, and the introduction would be written in fire and blood. The Deathworlders were coming. Admiral Chen Wei stood before the United Earth Council in Geneva, the alien message playing on every screen in the chamber. The translated words echoed through the room. "We are a peaceful civilization under attack by a mechanical swarm. We request assistance from any honorable species." The council chamber erupted in arguments. 300 representatives from every nation on Earth shouted over each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded humanity hide and protect itself. Others called for immediate action. A few suggested this might be a trap. "Order!" Secretary General Martinez slammed her gavel repeatedly. "Admiral Chen has the floor." Chen activated the holographic display showing the Cathera star system. The images from their transmission were disturbing. Entire worlds stripped bare, their surfaces turned into industrial complexes that built more Ravager ships. Billions of plant-like aliens dead or fleeing. "The transmission was received 6 hours ago," Chen said calmly. "Our xenolinguistics team has been working non-stop to translate it. The aliens call themselves the Cathera Collective. They're herbivores, completely peaceful. This Ravager swarm has already destroyed 3 of their 7 worlds." Representative Williams from the North American Union raised her hand. "Admiral, how do we know this isn't some kind of test? Or a trap to lure us into revealing our location and capabilities?" "Because they're dying," Chen replied simply. He activated another image showing refugee ships fleeing a burning world. "These aren't the actions of people setting a trap. These are the last gasps of a civilization facing extinction." Representative Petrov from the Russian Federation stood up. "Even if this is real, what can we do? We've had faster-than-light travel for less than 2 years. Our entire space fleet consists of 12 experimental ships. We're not ready for galactic warfare." "We're never ready," Chen said quietly. "Our entire history has been about facing impossible odds and surviving anyway. Every major human conflict has been won by people who weren't ready but fought anyway." Representative Okafor from the African Union frowned. "But those were human conflicts. These are aliens. We don't know their technology, their capabilities, their intentions. What if helping them brings this Ravager swarm to Earth?" Chen nodded. That's a valid concern. But consider this. If we do nothing, the Ravagers will eventually find us anyway. When they do, we'll face them alone. If we help the Cathera now, we might have allies when that day comes. Allies? Representative Liu from the Pacific Coalition laughed bitterly. Admiral, these people are herbivores who've never fought a war. What kind of allies would they make? The kind that remember who helped them when they were dying, Chen answered. The kind that might share their technology with us. The kind that might stand with us when we need help. Secretary General Martinez leaned forward. Admiral, give us your honest assessment. Can our fleet make a difference in this conflict? Chen was silent for a long moment. The Earth Defense Force had been built to protect humanity from asteroid impacts and potential alien invasion. The ships were heavily armored and well-armed, designed by people who had learned warfare from thousands of years of conflict on the most dangerous planet in their local stellar neighborhood. Our ships are built like fortresses, he said finally. Every one of them can take damage that would destroy most civilian vessels. Our weapons are designed to crack asteroids and destroy bunkers. Our Marines are trained to fight in conditions that would kill most life forms. But can we win? Martinez pressed. I don't know, Chen admitted, but I know we can hurt them. And I know that if we don't try, we'll have to live with the knowledge that we let billions of innocents die when we could have helped. Representative Singh from the Indian subcontinent stood up. What about our obligations to our own people? If we send our entire fleet away and Earth is attacked while they're gone, we'll have no defense. Earth's greatest defense has always been that nobody knows we exist, Chen replied. We've been broadcasting into space for over a century. If hostile aliens wanted to find us, they already would have. Our best protection is making sure that when we are discovered, we have friends. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about duty, risk, preparedness, and the unknown. Finally, Representative Okafor asked the question that cut through all the politics. Admiral Chen, why do you want to do this? Chen looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. They were scared, and they had every right to be. Humanity was taking its first steps into a galaxy that might be full of dangers they couldn't imagine. Because this is who we are, he said simply. For our entire history, we've been the species that runs toward danger when others need help. We run into burning buildings. We dive into stormy seas. We charge into battle when the odds are impossible. We do it because it's right, not because it's safe. He activated one more image. Earth rising over the lunar horizon, blue and green and beautiful against the black of space. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day, Chen continued. Earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages, plagues, predators, storms that could level cities. We survived because we learned to help each other, to stand together against whatever threatened us. Now there are people out there facing extinction, and they're asking for help. How can we call ourselves human if we turn our backs on them? The chamber fell silent. Secretary General Martinez looked around at the representatives, seeing the decision forming on their faces. All in favor of authorizing Admiral Chen to take the fleet and assist the Kythera Collective? She asked. Hands went up slowly around the chamber. Not all of them, but enough. Motion carries, Martinez said. Admiral, you have authorization to deploy the first fleet. God help us all. Chen saluted and left the chamber immediately. There was no time to waste. The Cathera had 18 days before the Ravagers reached their last worlds. It would take the human fleet 15 days to travel there using their experimental faster-than-light drives. In the orbital shipyards above Earth, 12 massive ships prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. The UES Thermopylae, Gettysburg, Stalingrad, Normandy, Hastings, Agincourt, Midway, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Trafalgar, Waterloo, and Marathon. Each ship was named for a battle where humans had faced impossible odds and won. Each ship carried 500 crew members and 200 Marines. Each was armed with kinetic cannons, nuclear missiles, and experimental plasma weapons. Each was armored thick enough to survive direct asteroid impacts. They had been built by a species that had learned warfare in the hardest school in the galaxy, the deadly surface of Earth. Chen stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae and watched Earth shrink behind them as the fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. They were scared, but they were ready. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving messages from the other ships. All captains report ready for combat. Signal the fleet, Chen ordered. Set course for the Cathera system. Maximum speed. The 12 ships of humanity's first fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars. carrying with them the hopes of two civilizations. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children were about to announce humanity's arrival to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Ahead of them, the Kythera collective prepared for its final battle, not knowing that help was coming from a species they had never heard of, from a world so dangerous that most galactic civilizations would consider it uninhabitable. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were ready for war. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kythera system, and Admiral Chen immediately understood why the aliens were losing. Through the bridge windows of the Thermopylae, he could see the wreckage of what had once been a beautiful civilization. Massive bioships drifted dead in space, their organic hulls torn open and lifeless. What remained of the Kythera fleet huddled around their final world, Anethvar. Chen counted maybe 40 ships, all of them converted cargo vessels and pleasure craft. They looked like flowers trying to fight wolves. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting approximately 50,000 refugee ships in orbit around the planet, mostly civilian transports and colony ships. Any sign of the Ravagers?" Chen asked. "Long-range sensors show a massive fleet approaching from the outer system. Estimate arrival in 6 hours." "Sir, there are thousands of them." Chen nodded grimly. The timing was perfect. Any later, and they would have arrived to find another dead world. Any earlier, and the Ravagers might have detected them coming and prepared an ambush. "Communications," he ordered. "Try to establish contact with the Kythera fleet." Lieutenant Martinez worked at her station, trying to find a compatible frequency. The Kythera seemed to communicate using bioelectric signals that their computers were struggling to translate. "Sir, I'm getting something," Martinez said. "It's very basic, but I think they're asking us to identify ourselves." "Put me through to their command ship," Chen said. The main screen activated, showing a fuzzy image that slowly cleared. Chen found himself looking at the strangest creature he had ever seen. The alien had 6 arms, large dark eyes, and skin that shifted color as it spoke. Its expression was unreadable, but its posture suggested exhaustion and despair. "I am High Botanist Veltha of the Kythera Collective," the alien said through the translation system. "Are you the ones who responded to our distress call?" "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Terran Defense Force," Chen replied. "We received your transmission and came as quickly as we could." Veltha's skin shifted to what the computer identified as surprised purple. "Terran? We have no record of your species in our databases. What kind of ships are those?" Chen glanced at his tactical officer, who was running scans on the Kythera vessels. The readings were strange. The alien ships were partially alive, grown rather than built, with weapons that looked like they were designed to stun rather than kill. "Our ships are built for war," Chen said simply. "We come from a world that taught us to fight for survival." "A warrior species?" Veltha's colors shifted again, this time to what looked like fear. "We sent a call for help, not conquest." "We're not here to conquer anyone," Chen assured her. "We're here to help you fight the Ravagers." Before Veltha could respond, alarms began sounding on both ships. The sensor officer on the Thermopylae called out urgently, "Admiral, the Ravager fleet has accelerated. They'll be here in 2 hours, not 6. On the screen, Veltha seemed to deflate. "They must have detected your arrival." The Ravagers adapt quickly to new threats. Chen studied the tactical display. The Ravager fleet was massive, easily 10,000 ships of various sizes. Most were small fighters, but there were hundreds of larger vessels that his computers classified as battleships. At the center of the formation was something huge, nearly the size of a moon. "What's that big ship?" he asked. "The Overmind," Veltha replied. "It controls the entire swarm. If we could destroy it, the other ships might become confused, but it's too well protected. We tried to attack it at Kythera Prime and lost half our fleet." Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You're thinking like gardeners, not soldiers. You don't attack the strongest point in an enemy formation. You create chaos and make them come to you." "I don't understand," Veltha said. "You will," Chen replied. He switched to the fleet command frequency. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have 2 hours to prepare for the largest space battle in human history. Captains, implement Battle Plan Omega." The human fleet immediately began to move. The 12 ships spread out into a defensive formation around the planet. But Chen wasn't planning to just sit and wait. The Thermopylae and 3 other ships accelerated toward the approaching Ravager fleet. "Admiral," Veltha protested, "you can't attack them directly." "They have thousands of ships. We're not attacking," Chen said. "We're introducing ourselves." The Thermopylae closed to weapons range of the Ravager vanguard and opened fire. The ship's main kinetic cannon fired tungsten slugs at a significant percentage of light speed. The projectiles punched through Ravager shields like paper and destroyed 6 ships with the first salvo. The Ravager response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of fighters swarmed toward the human ships, firing energy weapons that lit up space like a fireworks display. "Damage report," Chen called out as the ship shook under enemy fire. "Minimal damage to outer hull," his damage control officer reported. "Their weapons aren't penetrating our armor," Chen grinned. Human ships were built to survive in the dangerous environment around Earth, where space debris and solar storms could destroy lesser vessels. The Ravager energy weapons were powerful, but they were designed to fight the lightly built ships of peaceful civilizations. Return fire. All weapons, the Thermopylae's arsenal erupted in fury. Kinetic cannons, missile launchers, and plasma beams reached out to touch the Ravager swarm. Where they hit, enemy ships simply ceased to exist. But there were too many of them. For every Ravager ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The human ships began a fighting retreat toward the planet, drawing the enemy fleet after them. "Admiral," Velta called from the communication screen, "your ships are taking heavy damage. You should retreat to a safe distance." Chen looked at his tactical display. The Thermopylae's armor was holding, but barely. The other 3 ships were in similar condition. But the plan was working. The Ravager fleet was spreading out as they pursued, breaking their tight formation. "Now," Chen said quietly. The remaining 8 human ships had been waiting in the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. They accelerated to maximum speed and hit the scattered Ravager fleet from the side. Nuclear warheads detonated among the enemy ships, creating brief stars in the darkness. The Ravagers found themselves caught between 2 forces. The 4 human ships they had been chasing turned around and attacked again. The 8 ships from the asteroid belt cut through their flanks. In minutes, the Ravager vanguard was destroyed, but the main fleet was still coming, and now they knew what they were facing. On the communication screen, Velta stared at Chen with something approaching awe. "Your species has only had space travel for a few years, and you fight like this?" "We've been fighting for millions of years," Chen replied. "We just finally got off our planet," the sensor officer called out again. "Admiral, the main Ravager fleet is changing formation. They're concentrating their forces for a direct assault on the planet." Chen studied the tactical display. The Ravagers were no longer underestimating the human fleet. They were coming in strength. All 10,000 ships focused on overwhelming the defenders through sheer numbers. "Signal the Cathara fleet," Chen ordered. "Tell them to evacuate all non-combatants to the far side of the planet. This is going to get ugly." As the massive Ravager fleet approached, the 12 human ships formed a defensive line between them and Anethavar. Velta watched in amazement as the tiny human fleet prepared to face impossible odds. "Why?" she asked Chen. "Why are you doing this for people you just met?" Chen looked at the image of the alien on his screen, this peaceful gardener whose people were about to be extinct. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long climb from the caves to the stars, about all the times people had stood together against the darkness. "Because someone has to," he said simply. The Battle of Anethavar was about to begin. The Battle of Anethavar began with 10,000 Ravager ships charging toward 12 human vessels, and Admiral Chen doing exactly what no sane military commander would do. He ordered his fleet to split up. "Admiral," Captain Morrison of the Gettysburg protested over the communication channel, "if we divide our forces, they'll overwhelm us piece by piece." "That's what they expect," Chen replied calmly. "The Ravagers have been fighting peaceful civilizations for decades. They expect us to huddle together and die slowly. Instead, we're going to be unpredictable." The human fleet broke into 4 groups of 3 ships each. The Thermopylae led one group toward the Ravager left flank. The Stalingrad led another toward their right. The Normandy group dove below the enemy formation, while the Trafalgar group climbed above it. High Botanist Velta watched from her command ship, her skin shifting through colors that indicated confusion and terror. "Your fleet is scattering," she transmitted to Chen. "The Ravagers will destroy you individually." "Watch and learn," Chen replied. The first group to engage was the Normandy and her 2 escort ships. They hit the bottom of the Ravager formation like a hammer, their kinetic weapons punching through enemy hulls and destroying dozens of ships in the first few seconds. But instead of staying to fight, They immediately accelerated away, drawing several hundred Ravager fighters after them. "Classic hit and run," Chen's tactical officer observed. "We learned this fighting pirates in the asteroid belt. The Ravagers took the bait." Their formation began to stretch as different groups of ships pursued the human vessels. That's when the Thermopylae group struck from the left, tearing through the now loosened enemy lines and targeting their larger ships. The Ravager commander, whatever intelligence controlled their fleet, quickly adapted. The enemy ships began to reform, trying to concentrate their forces. But as soon as they started pulling together, the Trafalgar group attacked from above, forcing them to spread out again. For 2 hours, the human fleet played a deadly game of cat and mouse with an enemy that outnumbered them nearly 1,000 to 1. They never fought fair, never gave the Ravagers a chance to use their superior numbers effectively. When the enemy concentrated, the humans scattered. When the enemy scattered, the humans concentrated their fire on isolated targets. But the Ravagers were learning too. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "the enemy is changing tactics. They're ignoring our hit-and-run attacks and heading straight for the planet." Chen cursed under his breath. The Ravager overmind had figured out that the humans would have to defend the planet directly. It was sending the bulk of its fleet toward Anethvar while using smaller forces to keep the human ships busy. "All ships, converge on the planet," Chen ordered. "It's time for Plan B." Plan B was something the Cathera had never seen before. A species willing to use their own planet as a weapon. The human fleet raced back to Anethvar and took up positions in the planet's upper atmosphere. When the Ravager fleet arrived, they found the human ships using the planet's gravity well and magnetic field to their advantage. The Stalingrad fired nuclear missiles that used the planet's gravity to slingshot around and hit the Ravager fleet from unexpected angles. The Gettysburg used the magnetic field to accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. The Thermopylae actually skipped off the planet's atmosphere like a stone on water, using the maneuver to avoid enemy fire while launching devastating counterattacks. "Impossible," Veltha whispered, watching human ships perform maneuvers that should have torn them apart. "How are they surviving those accelerations?" "Gravity compensation technology," Chen explained briefly. "We developed it to survive on our homeworld during earthquakes and storms. But even with these advantages, the battle was turning against the humans. Their ships were taking heavy damage and the Ravagers kept coming. The enemy had lost nearly 2,000 ships, but they still had 8,000 more. That's when Chen made the decision that would be remembered in military academies for the next 1,000 years. "All ships," he broadcast on an open channel that the Ravagers could intercept, "prepare for tactical retreat. We cannot hold this position." The human fleet began to pull back from the planet, their formations looking ragged and defeated. The Ravager fleet surged forward, sensing victory. The massive Overmind ship moved closer to the planet, preparing to begin the harvesting process. But Chen wasn't retreating. He was setting a trap. "Now," he whispered. The asteroid field at the edge of the system suddenly came alive with explosions. Human engineers had spent the last 2 hours placing nuclear charges throughout the field. The detonations sent thousands of asteroids flying toward the planet at incredible speeds. The Ravager fleet found itself caught between the planet and a swarm of nuclear-powered meteors. Ships that tried to dodge the asteroids flew directly into human weapons fire. Ships that tried to fight the humans were smashed by space rocks moving at relativistic speeds. In the chaos, the Thermopylae accelerated toward the Overmind ship. The massive vessel was protected by hundreds of smaller ships, but Chen had studied the tactical data from the Cathera's previous battles. The Overmind always stayed at the center of its fleet, relying on other ships for protection. "Admiral," his navigator called out. "Collision course with the Overmind. Impact in 30 seconds. All hands, brace for impact," Chen announced. He switched to the fleet frequency. "All ships concentrate fire on the Overmind. This is our only chance." The 12 human ships converged on the massive enemy vessel like angry wasps attacking a giant. Their weapons poured fire into the Overmind's shields and armor. The great ship began to return fire, its weapons designed to destroy planets. The Hastings exploded under direct fire from the Overmind's main gun. The Agincourt lost power and began to drift. The Midway's hull cracked open, venting atmosphere and crew into space. But the Thermopylae kept coming. 10 seconds to impact, the navigator reported. Chen thought about Earth, about the blue oceans and green continents of his homeworld. He thought about the children in the Cathara refugee ships. He thought about all the peaceful civilizations that would die if the Ravagers were not stopped here. For Earth, he said quietly. For everyone who deserves to see tomorrow. The Thermopylae struck the Overmind at ramming speed. The explosion lit up the entire star system. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the effect on the Ravager fleet was immediate and devastating. Without the Overmind's central control, the mechanical ships began to malfunction. Some fired on each other. Others simply stopped moving. The remainder fled toward deep space. The Battle of Anethvar was over. High Botanist Veltha stared at the wreckage where the Thermopylae had been. The humans had saved her people, but at a terrible cost. Admiral Chen and 500 crew members were dead. 3 other human ships were destroyed or crippled. Why? She whispered, knowing Chen could no longer hear her. Why did you sacrifice so much for strangers? Captain Morrison of the Gettysburg, now the senior human officer, answered her question. His voice was heavy with grief, but also with pride. Because that's what humans do. He said simply, we stand between the darkness and the light. We always have. Around Anethvar, the surviving human ships formed a protective screen as Cathara rescue vessels searched for survivors. The immediate threat was over, but both species knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had noticed the humans now, and the humans had noticed the galaxy. The age of Earth's isolation was ending, and the age of humanity's guardianship had begun. 6 months after the Battle of Anethvar, High Botanist Veltha walked through the memorial garden that had been built on the human orbital station above her homeworld. The garden was a mixture of Earth and Cathara plants, somehow growing together in perfect harmony despite coming from worlds separated by dozens of light years. At the center of the garden stood a simple stone monument with names carved in both human and Cathara script. Admiral Chen Wei's name was at the top, followed by the 500 crew members of the Thermopylae and the other human casualties of the battle. They're beautiful, said a voice behind her. Veltha turned to see Captain Morrison approaching, his human features still strange to her after all these months. He was looking at the singing flowers that the Cathara had planted around the memorial. They sing the names of the honored dead, Veltha explained. In our culture, as long as someone's name is being sung, they are never truly gone. Morrison nodded and stood quietly for a moment, listening to the alien melody. Admiral Chen would have liked that. Veltha's skin shifted to the soft blue that indicated sadness mixed with gratitude. Captain, I still do not understand why your people risked everything for us. We were strangers. You had no obligation to help. We had every obligation, Morrison replied gently. Anybody with the power to help and the choice to act has an obligation to do the right thing. Chen understood that better than most. They walked together toward the viewing platform that looked out over Anethvar. The planet was healing from the Ravager attack. New cities were growing where the old ones had been destroyed. The orbital shipyards were busy building new vessels, but these weren't the delicate flower ships of the old Cathara fleet. The new ships were harder, more angular, designed with human engineering principles but powered by Cathara biotechnology. The Council of Worlds has made its decision, Veltha said, referring to the Galactic Assembly that had formed in the wake of the Ravager War. They want to meet with your leaders. Morrison smiled. And how do they feel about having Deathworlders in their neighborhood? The term Deathworlders had spread quickly through the galaxy after the battle. Other species had been amazed to learn that humans came from a planet with active volcanoes, shifting continents, violent weather, and predators that hunted in packs. Most galactic civilizations evolved on stable, peaceful worlds. Earth was considered barely habitable by their standards. They are nervous, Veltha admitted. The crystalline harmony has requested that human ships stay at least 10 light-years from their territory. The gaseous collective has proposed restrictions on human military expansion. And what do you think? Morrison asked. Veltha looked at the human captain, remembering the first time she had seen his species. She had been terrified by their aggressive-looking ships and their casual discussion of warfare. Now she knew better. I think they are fools, she said firmly. The Ravagers destroyed 17 civilizations before they reached us. They would have destroyed 17 more if your people had not stopped them. The galaxy needs guardians, not more frightened children hiding in their gardens. Morrison appreciated the sentiment, but he also understood the other species' concerns. We're not trying to be conquerors, Veltha, but we won't apologize for being effective at warfare. Our history taught us that sometimes violence is the only answer to violence. A communication device on Morrison's belt chimed softly. He activated it and listened to a brief message, then looked up with a mixture of excitement and concern. "What is it?" Feltha asked. "Another distress signal," Morrison said. "This time from the Gentle Winds Federation. Something called the Iron Plague is consuming their worlds, turning organic matter into metal." Veltha felt her skin shift to alarm colors. The Gentle Winds were old friends of the Kythera, a peaceful civilization of flying creatures who lived in the clouds of gas giant planets. "How many ships can Earth send?" she asked. "The Second Fleet launched from Earth 2 weeks ago," Morrison replied. 24 ships this time, all of them bigger and better armed than the First Fleet. But it will take them a month to reach Gentle Wind space. "The Kythera will send what ships we can," Felta promised. "Our new biocruiser should be ready for combat trials." Morrison nodded, then looked at her seriously. "Are you sure about this? Your people just finished rebuilding from the Ravager War. You don't owe anyone else your blood." Felta thought about the memorial garden behind them, about Admiral Chen and his crew who had died to save people they had never met. "Your Admiral Chen taught us something important. He showed us that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, even if they are strangers." As they spoke, other messages were arriving at the human embassy. The Aquatic Depths Federation was reporting strange creatures emerging from ocean trenches. The Silicon Brotherhood had detected massive ships of unknown design crossing their territory. The Hive Collective had gone silent, their last transmission mentioning something called the Devourers. Morrison sighed as he read the reports. "It seems like the galaxy is full of monsters." "Yes," Felta agreed. "But now it has monsters that fight for the innocent as well as against them." Over the next few weeks, the human response to the various crises began to take shape. The Second Fleet engaged the Iron Plague at the edge of Gentle Wind space, using specially designed weapons that could destroy the metal-converting nanobots before they spread. The Third Fleet, hastily assembled from Earth's growing space industry, raced toward the aquatic depths to investigate the deep ocean creatures. But perhaps more importantly, the humans weren't fighting alone anymore. Kythera bioships accompanied every human fleet, their organic hulls complementing human armor and weapons. Crystalline Harmony vessels, despite their government's official policy, volunteered to serve alongside human ships. Even some of the more cautious species began to contribute supplies and intelligence. The galaxy was learning that having Deathworlders as neighbors wasn't something to fear. It was something to celebrate. A year after first contact, Captain Morrison stood in the same memorial garden, now wearing the uniform of a Galactic Defense Force admiral. The organization had been formed by treaty between dozens of species, with Earth providing most of the military leadership and other worlds contributing their various specialties. Veltha joined him as she often did, her skin showing the deep green of contentment. "The new recruits are performing well," she reported. "The Gaseous Collective has contributed atmospheric fighters. The Silicon Brotherhood is providing engineering support. Even the Hive Collective has emerged from their silence and offered to share their swarming tactics." Morrison smiled. Chen would be proud. His dream of making allies instead of conquering enemies is coming true. "There is something else," Veltha said, her colors shifting to excitement. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected signals from the Andromeda galaxy. Other civilizations possibly facing their own threats?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "The Galactic Defense Force has grown strong," Veltha said. "Perhaps it is time to think beyond our own galaxy. If there are people in Andromeda who need help..." Morrison looked out at the stars visible through the garden's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, the human fleet was engaged in its 5th major battle since the Ravager War, protecting people they had never met from threats they were still learning to understand. It was dangerous work, costly work, but it was also the most important work in the galaxy. "We'll need bigger ships," he said finally. "The Kythera are already designing them," Veltha replied. "Biocruisers the size of cities with human weapons and armor integrated into living hulls. Ships that can carry entire fleets and fight for years without resupply. And crews. Every species in the Defense Force is volunteering. It seems the galaxy has developed a taste for heroism." Morrison nodded slowly. The memorial garden sang softly around them, the alien flowers carrying the names of the dead to the stars. Admiral Chen Wei's name was still there, still being sung, along with thousands of others who had died in the various conflicts since first contact. But their sacrifice had meaning. The galaxy was safer now, protected by an alliance of species who had learned to fight together instead of dying alone. The age of isolated civilizations hiding from the darkness was ending. The age of the Galactic Defense Force had begun, and somewhere in the void between galaxies, ancient threats stirred in response to the growing light of organized resistance. The real war Morrison suspected was yet to come, but humanity and its allies would be ready. They had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy, that people who stand together can face any darkness, no matter how vast. The Deathworlders had become the galaxy's guardians, and the galaxy was finally learning to fight back.